Hi, I'm Amy Fitzgerald. I'm an editorial director for Carol Rhoda Books at Lerner Publishing Group. I'm in charge of our middle grade and young adult novels, and we have some great ones to share with you this fall. Jenny Liu's Like Spilled Water, set in present-day China. This is a subtly suspenseful story that gripped me from the very first page when 19-year-old Na finds out that her younger brother has died. She's always thought of her brother as the lucky one, the spoiled one, because their parents have poured all their resources into getting him the best possible education, while Na felt like more of an afterthought. Her father uses the phrase, "having a daughter is like spilled water," essentially a waste, while her brother has gotten all their parents' attention and all the opportunities they could buy him. But Na soon finds out that her brother's death happened under mysterious circumstances, and that he wasn't the perfect student and obedient son that she believed him to be. Na starts uncovering her brother's secrets while also dealing with her parents' expectation that she'll quit her own schooling and go to work to help them with their money troubles. This leads her to question many of the cultural values her family has long taken for granted: reverence for parents, clear gender roles, and generally a lack of opportunities for individual expression in a collective society. This is partly a mystery, partly a coming-of-age story, and overall an immersive look into a society very different from the US, but still grappling with very relatable challenges. How do you pursue your personal dreams when societal barriers stand in the way? How do you break a tradition of silence around difficult topics? And how do you deal with the emotional impacts of issues you yourself aren't well informed about? One thing I love about this story is that while Na does have many misconceptions and gaps in her knowledge about issues like mental health, sexual orientation, and feminism, she confronts her own ignorance and pushes herself to change her thinking. And ultimately, she finds the courage to both honor her brother's memory and stand up for her own future. And finally, we've got another YA novel, How to Live on the Edge by Sarah Schierger. You almost couldn't find a protagonist more different from Na in Like Spilled Water. 18-year-old Cayenne is a proud risk-taker and confounder of expectations. Her mother died of breast cancer when Cayenne was a toddler, and since the disease seems to run in her family, Cayenne has always assumed she'll die young too. So she figures she may as well live large and chase adrenaline while she can. But then her aunt, who's raised her, learns from a genetic test that she has a gene mutation that's strongly linked with breast and ovarian cancer. Cayenne now has to help her aunt prepare for an elective mastectomy to reduce her chances of getting breast cancer in the future, while also grappling with whether she herself should get tested for this gene mutation. On the one hand, knowledge is power, but on the other hand, ignorance is bliss, and planning for the future has never been her strong suit. Plus, she's a little freaked out by the idea of someday sacrificing her breasts and ovaries in an attempt to fend off cancer that may or may not work, and that could forever change how others see her and how she sees herself. Gradually, though, she revises her ideas about what it means to be a woman. Spoiler alert, body parts are not the main criteria for multiple reasons. And also what it means to really live life to the fullest. The author is herself a carrier of the BRCA gene mutation and has had preventative surgeries to reduce her cancer risks. So she wrote this novel to address how a teenager might deal with the fears and the possibilities that this experience can bring. I think this story perfectly captures what it feels like to be legally an adult, but not have the first clue about how to tackle adult responsibilities and choices that may affect the rest of your life. It's also a lovely portrayal of an unconventional family dealing with the long-term effects of loss and finding a way forward together.
Hello, I am Ashley Keel, and I am the executive editor of Young Adult Nonfiction at Lerner Publishing Group. And I am here today with my colleague Shayna Olmanson, who is the associate editorial director of Young Adult Nonfiction at Lerner Publishing Group. And today we're going to tell you about the Fall 20 books from our imprints, 21st Century Books and Zest Books.
Genomics is a new field in biology and medicine, made possible by the results of the Human Genome Project, which sequenced all 3 billion base pairs of the human genome in the early 2000s. Genomics, a revolution in health and disease discovery, delves into the recent breakthroughs within this new field, exploring the basics of genetic science and the technological advancements that have made genomic medicine possible. Authors Whitney Stewart and Dr. Hans Anderson use case studies of individuals who have benefited from genomic medicine to make this complex topic approachable and relatable for young readers. The text covers controversial ethical issues, such as the editing of human embryos with CRISPR-Cas9 and the application of genetic research in sports to decide who can and cannot compete, challenging readers to both understand the science and think critically about the ways that society uses science. This book's publication coincides with the blossoming of a new medical field, the developments of which make headlines every day, and it will inspire an interest in science and medicine.
For students across the country, figuring out what to do after high school can be terrifying. Will you go to college? And if so, how do you choose one? How do you pay for it? What are the differences among an Ivy League school, a four-year state university, a community college, and trade school? And what do you even want to do with your life? Is it worth taking out student loans to study something you're not even sure you want to do? What if you're considering joining the military? What do you need to know? What are the risks and what are the benefits? This book walks readers through many of the options available, including college, gap years, military service, volunteering, and more. It explores different ways to figure out your interests and goals, and it takes a deep dive into how to put your plans into action, especially in terms of financials. Revisions and updates from the first edition will meet the needs of today's audience, including updated costs for different kinds of colleges, universities, and trade schools, as well as up-to-date information about student loans, grants, scholarships, and additional guidance on navigating distance learning and deferring enrollment in a pandemic-affected world. Author Genevieve Morgan lives in Portland, Maine, where she writes both fiction and nonfiction, as well as teaching writing to teenagers. In 2015, this book became a TEDx Youth Talk available on YouTube.
Drones that can shapeshift to absorb a crash, designer proteins that deliver a universal flu vaccine, a concert hall ceiling that can adjust to improve acoustics, and a telescope lens the size of a football field that can see into deep space. In one way or another, each of these innovations uses strategic folding. To develop technologies that make them possible, engineers take inspiration from the ancient art form of origami and the natural world. Written by long-standing 21st Century Books author Karen Lachana Kenny, Folding Tech, Using Origami and Nature to Revolutionize Technology, examines the history of origami from its origin as a spiritual practice in Japan to the implementation of computer programs to create intricate, multi-sheet works of art. From there, Kenny takes examples from both origami and nature to demonstrate how the math that makes them possible can also be used to solve some of the most complicated challenges in engineering, architecture, technology, and medicine today. Lerner's augmented reality allows readers to get up close and personal with this technology and to see it in action.
What does it mean to procrastinate? The author definition in this book is to put something off despite knowing that a negative consequence is likely to happen. This book can help readers stop procrastinating and get it done, whatever it happens to be. It helps the reader figure out why they're procrastinating, what's stopping them from getting something done, and more. It includes lots of tools and tips for setting up good work environments and analyzing one's own styles and needs. For instance, are you having trouble finding time to exercise? Make it easy. Put it on your calendar. Bring your gear with you. Set up a routine. Play basketball right after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or if you're putting off college applications, block off a Friday morning to start sorting through it. Author Leslie Josel has been a time management coach for teens for more than 10 years. She does individual coaching and presentations around the country, and her company, Order Out of Chaos, has created an award-winning academic planner for teens. Leslie uses true stories and anecdotes from the kids she's worked with over the years to demonstrate where they were getting stuck and how she worked with them to get unstuck. Just one example from the book is high school student Rachel couldn't sit still in one place long enough to get all her homework done. So one day, Leslie asked Rachel to organize her homework by subject, and then Leslie hid each subject in a different place in her house. And wherever Rachel found the homework, that's where she had to finish it, even if it was in the bathtub or under the kitchen table. It sounds weird, but it worked for this student. The author has a sense of humor and knows how to meet teens on their level. She acknowledges that it's hard and everyone procrastinates. And then she provides a lot of amazing tools and strategies for lots of different types of people and concerns. This book will resonate with teens, young adults, and probably anyone else too.
In January 2009, a mysterious software developer, Satoshi Nakamoto, exchanged a specially designed code with another developer. The code was a digital currency that Nakamoto had proposed several months before in a paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This was the first Bitcoin transaction. Since then, Bitcoin has become the face of a tech revolution in digital cryptocurrencies based on blockchain technology. In Cryptocurrencies and the Blockchain Revolution, Bitcoin and Beyond, author Brendan January describes why Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were created and who is using them, diving into the blockchain technology and coding that supports cryptocurrencies, and showing where cryptocurrencies have succeeded and where they have failed. The book looks at the worlds of coders, libertarians, criminals, financial regulators, and crypto detectives to understand the limits and pitfalls of cryptocurrency and how it may fundamentally challenge governments, the financial sector, and global economics.
In the United States, we're electing women politicians at record rates. In the 2018 midterms, 589 women ran for US Congress and the governor's office. 125 of those won their elections, including 45 women of color. This book, which includes full-color illustrated portraits, is a non-exhaustive who's who of 44 women currently influencing and shaping politics, both in the United States and overseas. One of the main goals is to examine the road to power for women politicians in our times, and it can also serve as a beautiful inspiration for young people considering activism and politics as a career. The book addresses important historical figures and explains some key political processes and terminology as well. Each profile includes the politician's background, how she got started in politics, her top causes, who disagrees with her and why, and ends with a few of her biggest achievements and quotes. Debut author Caitlin Donahue is an American freelance journalist who currently lives in Mexico.
In 1941, Kiyo Sato, her parents, and her 8 siblings grew strawberries and grapes on a small farm near Sacramento, California. Kiyo had just started college, and her oldest brother would soon join the Army. The younger children attended school. The family went to church on Sundays. They were a typical American family until they weren't. Following the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order ordering 120,000 Americans of Japanese ancestry to internment camps, even if they were U.S. citizens. Kiyo and her family had 10 days to prepare before being bused to an internment camp in Arizona. Written by longtime TFCB author Connie Goldsmith with Kiyo Sato herself, this book tells the story of Kiyo's family, from her parents' immigration to the United States and starting a family in California, to their internment by the U.S. government and the impact being uprooted and treated as prisoners in their own country had. It also tells the story of their resilience in the face of adversity and how Kiyo has used her experience to educate others, to advocate for inclusivity, and to fight against similar injustice.
Hi everyone, my name is Greg Hunter. I'm the editorial director of Lerner's Graphic Universe imprint, and I'm here to talk to you about all the graphic novels we have coming out this fall 2020. Thank you for joining me. Lizard in a Zoot Suit is an original young adult graphic novel by Mexican-American artist Marco Finnegan. Lizard in a Zoot Suit takes place in Los Angeles during the Zoot Suit riots of 1943. This period saw tensions explode between sailors stationed in the area and the Latinx youths who called Southern California home. Against that backdrop, the story follows 2 sisters who discover a stranded member of an undiscovered lizard-like species, and it becomes their mission to return the creature to its home and help it find its family. And in the meantime, they have to keep it away from corrupt military scientists, and will have to dress it up in a zoot suit in the process. Lizard in a Zoot suit has echoes of other much-loved stories, from E.T. to The Shape of Water, while also feeling like something totally unique. It has really stylish two-color artwork. It lives up to its title in terms of the fun, adventure, and humor it has to offer. And it explores a fascinating historical moment of unrest. For readers who want to learn more about the Zoot Suit riots, there's even back matter sharing a bit more about the Mexican-American experience in Los Angeles and the aggressions they encountered around this time. A Light in the Darkness, A Lock in the Door is the second volume of the House Divided series, a quirky, funny, and heartfelt fantasy series from author Heike Hornig and artist Marius Politza. This book follows Henrietta Achilles, a teenage orphan who learns that she had an uncle and that he was a notorious wizard, and that she's inherited his manor. The second book finds Henrietta, along with warring bands of thieves and soldiers who have occupied the house, coming together after a magical flooding problem threatens to drown them and the town nearby. We start to see more of the series' grand design in these books, with more glimpses into the work of Henrietta's mysterious uncle. And we also begin to learn about the tragic shared past of the book's bandit leader and his military rival. There are notes of real poignancy in the story, although first and foremost, it's a colorful, energetic fantasy tale, the kind of book you should get some popcorn for. Entertainment Weekly called the first volume a delight, and I defy you to put down A Light in the Darkness, the second volume, after the characters' encounter with the giant fish. And last up, Ever After, this young adult horror graphic novel comes to us from German author-artist Olivia Buig. For readers who are looking for a kind of apocalyptic catharsis in a graphic novel read right now, Ever After is a really standout story among zombie tales. There are genuine scares here, and the story never looks away from a frightening moment, but there's also a real psychological depth and even a poetry to the work. Kirkus has called it a melancholic but multicolored apocalyptic tale told with originality. In a German landscape with a couple barricaded safe zones and long stretches of zombie-filled countryside in between them, two young women named Vivi and Eva find themselves stranded outside. Vivi's overcome by grief and guilt ever since the start of the zombie outbreak, and Eva's starting to slowly turn into one of the undead herself. Like all great road stories, they start out at odds with each other, but have to work together. And a big part of the story is the bond they eventually find. The German edition of this graphic novel, Endzeit, has already been adapted for a feature film of the same name. So it's really exciting to be the English language publisher of this edition. Olivia, the author, reaches for tones and experiences in her story that just make it a totally unique zombie tale.